AV, and today I'll be talking about malware. And in order to go through the whole malware, we'll be looking at what is malware, the timelines that exist in malware, the types of malware out there, examples of real life example of a malware that exists, the latest news, industry news on malware, and every final thought or opinion I have about malware. What is malware? The term malware is derived from the word malicious software. So, malwares are code or software written with a malicious intent. So, in order for something to be called a malware, in order for software to be called a malware, it has to be written with a malicious intent. It is good to note right now that sometimes some softwares are poorly written or written based on negligence, and so they cause harm. Those kind of softwares cannot be called malware because they were not written with a malicious intent. In order for a software to be called a malware, it has to be written with a malicious intent. Some ways in which people, your computers have types of computers, types of devices that can get malwares are like your laptops, your smartphones, your PCs at home, and etc. All this can get malwares, and you can get malwares through emails, through visiting websites, and also malwares can actually attach themselves through other softwares or hardware devices to your computer. Now, I would like to note that although most people call malware viruses, and some malware are actually viruses, not all malwares are viruses. So, not all malware are viruses, and we'll be talking more about the various types of malware that exist in coming times. But I would like to know that not all malwares are viruses. Now, in order for us to look at the history of malware, I would like to discuss it based on timelines, and I'll be using the Milosevic timeline. He categorized malware into five categories, which I found to be interesting and easy for and created ease of understanding. And I think it might actually help us today in explaining the whole history of malware and how malware began. So now the first stage of malware, the first category of malware will be the early stage malware. This was the beginning stage of malware. This was where malware was just coming into the face and people were just getting to know what malware truly was. And this started with the malware virus called the brain. So this was actually developed by two brothers and it affected the booting sectors of floppy disks. Booting sectors of floppy disks. So in other words, if a floppy disk is infected with this virus called the brain, once it's inserted into the floppy disk of a system, and once it's inserted into the booting sector of a computer or a system, automatically that booting sector gets infected with this malware called the brain. And therefore, any other floppy disk that is inserted um, into this faulty booting sector, automatically that floppy disk gets the brain, the malware called the brain. So even in this early stage, all the types of malware existed, like the omega that also affected the booting sectors of malware. One thing I like to note about the omega was that it did not cause any specific harm per se, unless on February the 13th when the computer could not boot. So for say like a Friday today, Friday the 13th, for example, your computer wouldn't just boot. That's because it has been affected by the malware virus called Omega. The next phase I would like to look at is called the early Windows phase. So this phase is when Windows just came into the market. Everybody was excited. There's a new interface in town. It was easy to use. The interface was user friendly. So everybody loved Windows. And that was when this malware was created, WinV. Windows had no much harm other than infecting the Windows portable executables. It just wanted to show that the Windows was not as nice or as good as people claimed it to be. That's what it wanted to show. And during this Windows time, other malware such as Monkey and the Sloven Bomber was created. The next time category will be the network worms. So this worm actually became widespread due to the creation and widespread adaptation of the internet. So the internet became a new thing. The internet became a big deal, and everybody was excited about it. And the first worm that was distributed over the internet was called the Morris worm. This worm was actually a big deal during the internet age because it affected over 6,000 computers. And how did this worm work? It checked for vulnerabilities in Unix and also weak password. So that it was during the invention of this Morris Worm malware that we actually began the reviewing process of password protection. So now you hear people say use capital letters, use this one, change your password frequently. It was actually the Morris Worm that gave birth to the whole reviewing of password protection procedures. The next category will be the rootkits and ransomware. This is the fourth stage of malware, and it was known to be the most dangerous malware that ever existed before 2010. Rootkits are malware that affects the operating systems of computers. And the first ever rootkit that ever existed um, was made by Sony Entertainment, and they actually put this rootkits in their systems and their products to protect the copyright of their publication. So if people are trying to download it or sell it illegally, they will get the identity of this people. And this didn't sell well with people. When people found out about it, it became a big deal, and it actually gave Sony Entertainment a bad reputation for it. The final category will be the virtual espionage and sabotage. That's currently the phase that we're in right now. So, the virtual espionage and sabotage was actually created by state government and state secret services. Now, they government discovered that they could actually malwares could cause as much havoc and harm as much as a physical bomber could do. So rather than send a physical human to throw a bomb or go denote a bomb or something, now they discovered that they could actually use malware to actually do this thing. And the one of the biggest one we saw for the virtual espionage was the Sonex in 2010. This was when it was created to slow down the nuclear program of Iran by altering their rotation frequencies. So this was the first time that we actually see virtual espionage being used. Other than that, we've seen other virtual espionage such as Dokyo and Flames have also been used. Now, what are the types of malware that existed? If you recall, I did state that although malware can be viruses, not all malware can be viruses. Not all malware are viruses. What are the types of malware that exist? We have Trojan horses, viruses, worm, and logic bombs. And Um, I'll be discussing this in depth more. I would like to state right now that there are several types of malware out there. Several ones exist, but I will be focusing on this four for time and other reasons as well, because I found out that this four were actually the most common types of malware that people can actually get. So Trojanos, the malware gets its name from the Greek mythology. So if you're ever familiar with the Greek movie, you find out that that's where the name Trojanos came about. So this was when the Greeks were, and there was actually a battle going on, and they brought a horse as a gift to this other nation, as a peace gift to this other nation that will let all peace be made. They don't want to be in war anymore. And this other nation accepted the horse as a peace sacrifice and kept it in their kingdom. At night, when all of them were sleeping, soldiers came out of this horse and then they slew everybody in this nation. So everybody was killed. Now, that's how this whole malware disguises itself as. Malware comes into your computer as a useful, genuine software, and then you have to download it or install it into your computer. So if you've been browsing on a website and then you see that it sent you to another link and then it says, oh, you've won this iPad or you've won this thing, click on it to gain it. Now, when you click on such websites or such links, this could be Trojan horses that you could actually install into your computer. One thing I like to note about the Trojan OS is that the major feature of this Trojan is that it must be installed by a user. So it just can't come into your computer. You have to install Trojan OS into your computer. So that's why it's advisable that you be careful of the kind of websites and kind of links that you're clicking in. The types of Trojan horses out there bots, ransomware, spyware, and adware. All of this are threats to your computer. The next type of malware we'll be looking at are viruses. These are the most common types of malware out there. They are malicious, self-replicating programs of code that propagate themselves by infecting other programs, including the operating system. Viruses can replicate themselves by attaching themselves to executable codes. So that way, when those codes are performed, viruses are executed. So viruses can only be executed, can only replicate themselves by attaching themselves to another executable code. There are two major types of viruses for malware that exist. We have the boot sector virus, and this affects the boot sector of computer. If you remember when we talked about Omega and the brain, that's an example of a boot sector virus. And we also have program viruses. This kind of virus attach themselves to executable codes in order to replicate themselves. The next type of malware we'll be talking about is the worm. A worm is a type of malware that replicates itself in a system. So a worm has the ability to replicate itself, and it is considered one of the most dangerous types of malware out there because it can secretly infect your computer without you even knowing about it. A worm looks for software vulnerabilities in the computer and exploits this vulnerability to infect the computer. One typically attach themselves to spam emails, instant images. So you see all the spam and instant images that you receive that would require you to purchase something or click on something. Those could actually be worms that you could be installing into your computer. Now, I'd like to note that the difference between a worm and a virus is that a worm can reproduce itself and does not need another replicable file and does not need an executable code to be able to replicate itself. It can replicate itself. And the most common type of worm infection that we saw in the 2000 was the sonic swarm that was used to attack the Iranian nuclear plant. The final type of malware we'll be looking at today is logic bomb. A logic bomb is the code that is intentionally attached to a software or code to denote at a specific event or time. So if a computer is infected with logic bomb, it can only denote when a particular time or event or date that it was set has reached. So, for example, if the most times that people see logic bomb being used most times is an employee, for example, that has been terminated from his employment, from his job. Now it has malicious intent towards his employer, is angry over his termination. His work termination can actually place a malware, a logic bomb malware into the systems of this his employer, and then he will say maybe 3 months from today this malware should denote. So when it denotes, you find out that the whole database of the company gets wiped out. Now, an example of where we see logic bomb being used was in South Korea in 2013 when the database and booting sector of at least three banks and media houses were simultaneously wiped out. So logic bomb was used in South Korea and three major banks and two major media houses, their data center was completely wiped out by this logic bomb. So it could be a big deal when people use it. So those are the types of malware we discussed today. Um, I purposely chose this particular example to use to describe the effect of which malware can be very dangerous to us. And this example, this WannaCry. WannaCry is a ransom crypto war that occurred in May 2017. I chose this particular example because one, the spread was worldwide. It didn't just spread in a particular nation, particular town, particular business. It affected the whole nations. I think about 150 countries were actually affected by the WannaCry malware. And also, one of the reasons why I chose it was that it's pretty recent, 2017. So that's like 2 years back when this malware actually occurred. This malware WannaCry affected over 200,000 people and about 230 computers worldwide. 30 computers worldwide was actually affected by this WannaCry. WannaCry attack lasted for 4 days. 4 whole days, WannaCry attack was happening before Microsoft was able to locate the kill switch and kill this attack before it could attack for the people. So how did WannaCry become a thing? What happened? How did he become a thing? WannaCry targeted computers running the Microsoft Windows operating system. So if as of May 2017, if you operated a Microsoft Windows operating system, you fell at risk of being a victim of WannaCry. Now it encrypted data. It encrypted the data of victims and demanded Bitcoin payments in order to release this data to people. WannaCry actually spread through the propagation, spread through the leak of Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue was leaked in 2017, and that's when WannaCry actually found out about the leak, and that was how they were able to spread and become a big deal. It was actually estimated that about $3 billion was actually used. $3 billion was actually the loss that was actually gained from this WannaCry malware. Now, what's happening in the industry today? What's the latest news on malware today? According to Robert Wakim in his article, What Cyber Challenges Does the Industry Face in 2019, he stated that the threat of malware is on the increase. He stated examples such as the Shamo malware of 2018 disrupted the work of Italian oil giant Saipem and local Goga ransomware in 2019 this year that affected Nosik Hydro and Europe's largest aluminium that affected Nasohor, Europe's largest aluminium producers. He believes that malware is on the increase due to the development of AI, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. That these things were actually going to make malware on the increase. He believes that this AI and IoT would actually increase malware because of the increase in machine to machine communication and less human interaction. So the lesser human interaction that machines had, it will become difficult for humans to actually protect sensitive information from being leaked and from attackers to find vulnerabilities. So, okay. Another article I found that I thought was interesting was from Sonic Wall. And Sonic Wall actually showed an opposing view from what we found from Robert Wakim. Sonic Wall actually said that for 2019, there has been a decrease, overall decrease in malware in 2019. Sonic Wall Sonic Wall showed that the decrease, although there has been a decrease in malware in 2019, the number of malware attack is still significantly high, and something needs to be done in order to curb this attack. Now, there was something that Sonic Wall stated that I found very interesting. It said that although malware attacks are decreasing, malware attacks are becoming more strategic in the sense that they are attacking one large target as opposed to several targets. So rather than attackers attacking a lot of people at once, they're becoming more strategic at attacking a large, for example, a single company or a single business that is a large entity. So they're becoming more strategic, and so businesses ought to be aware about this new changes or strategic views of attackers. My final thought about this whole malware is that although reports shows that malware attacks are decreasing in 2019 when compared to previous years of 2018 and 2017, I still believe that malware are a great threat to computer and system networking. This is because the number of malware attacks that we see that happen daily is still a large number. Even if most of them might not be successful, the fact that most people are still attempting means that it's still a large number. And like Robert Wakim said, the rise and development of AI and IoT will only lead to more sophisticated avenues of malware development. So companies and businesses ought to be more aware and ought to be more strategically aware. They have to prepare stricter security rules across their organization and provide a real-time security alert for all their networks. So whenever an attacker is trying to attack their network, they can get this alert quickly, and they should be able to search for vulnerabilities often and frequently so that attackers don't get to find out those vulnerabilities before they do. So that will bring me to the end of today's presentation of malware. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good evening.